The bell over the glass door gave a cheerful jingle as Logan stepped inside, but the warmth didn't reach the faces behind the counter. The scent of fresh fruit, citrus, and berry tried to sell happiness, but it was all just a veneer. Logan Price, founder of the Sunberry Juice Company, was used to reading between the lines. Today, those lines were thick with tension. He wore faded jeans, a hoodie frayed at the sleeves, and sneakers that had seen better years. Nothing like the tailored suits he used to wear when pitching to investors. He didn't want to be seen as the boss today. He wanted to see the truth. One pineapple glow, no add-ons, he said casually. The young woman at the register, Maya, punched it in with shaky fingers. Her name tag was smudged, but the weary brightness in her voice was clear. She was trying. Coming right up, she said, forcing a smile that flickered like a dying bulb. Her eyes darted to the back of the store, then to her coworker, and then finally met Logan's just for a moment. That's when he noticed it. Not fear, not fatigue. It was resignation, like someone who tried to speak up before and paid for it. Logan took his smoothie, thanked her, and walked slowly to a small corner table by the window. He didn't touch the straw yet. He just watched. Maya blended the next drink, barely speaking, moving with practiced grace but mechanical steps. The assistant manager, a guy in his early 30s with a tight jaw and a looser sense of decency, Logan didn't know his name yet, leaned over her shoulder, saying something that made her flinch. Logan's eyes narrowed. The place was immaculate, walls scrubbed, counters gleaming. But the atmosphere was sterile, cold, the kind of clean that comes from fear, not pride. Logan took out his phone and pretended to scroll. His screen dimmed. He'd done this before. Different disguise, different city, different team. But this one felt heavier. He wanted to believe his company still lived by the mission he built it on. Fresh fruit, fair work, and second chances. That's when it happened, the moment that made his hand freeze around the cup. Maya leaned in toward her coworker, her voice low but not low enough. I told him we shouldn't be charging for the extra flax if they didn't ask. He said if I bring it up again, I'll lose my weekend shifts. Her coworker stiffened but didn't speak. Maya continued, her voice even softer. And he told me to just blend the old strawberries in. Said the customer won't know the difference. I almost got sick yesterday. Logan didn't move. The smoothie in his hands suddenly felt like acid. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't a rogue store having a rough week. This was systemic, and someone was teaching it. He slowly lifted the cup, took one sip, and set it back down. The flavor hit different now. Something rotten was buried deep in his own brand, and it had just made itself known. Logan kept his eyes on his phone, but his ears sharpened like a wire pulled tight. The hum of the blender masked the words at first, but then Maya leaned closer to the other worker, a timid teen with short curls and anxious eyes, and what she said pierced through the mechanical whir. You gotta lie to keep the job, she whispered, her voice fraying like a thread pulled too long. I hate it, but if you don't upsell the superfoods, they cut your hours. And if you tell anyone, Brent says you're not a team player. The boy's eyes darted toward the back, to the swinging door that led to the office. His hands trembled as he restacked a pile of compostable straws. But the chia's expired, he muttered under his breath. Maya nodded without looking up. So are the strawberries. If they're not moldy, we use them, even if they smell off. He says it boosts margins. I almost threw up when I made that mango blend yesterday. The fruit was gray inside. Logan's grip around his cup tightened, knuckles whitening. Every word carved into him like a betrayal. The Sunberry Juice Company had started with handwritten recipes in his kitchen and a simple goal: create a place where health wasn't a hustle and employees weren't disposable. But here, inside one of his own franchises, that dream had been twisted into something unrecognizable. The smoothie he sipped now sat in his gut like a stone. He forced himself to stay still, to not react, because he needed more. He needed to understand how deep this cancer ran. Maya glanced at the camera in the ceiling, an old dome model that Logan knew hadn't recorded anything in years. Most franchisees ignored the maintenance schedule, but corporate never forced repairs unless there was a theft. She lowered her voice even more. He calls it quiet selling, says if they don't notice the $1.50 flax charge or the expired goji berries, then it's not. Unethical. It's efficient. Told me if I wanted to keep Sunday shifts, I'd better learn the game. Logan could feel his heart rate climb. Brent. That had to be Brent Myers, the regional manager he'd fast-tracked last year for hitting quarterly growth goals. Charismatic, ambitious, and now clearly rotten. Logan had defended him during a franchisee complaint last fall, said the man was just pushing for excellence. Now it looked like he'd been pushing something else entirely. The boy at the counter, Jared, judging by his tag, looked like he wanted to disappear. Maya placed a hand lightly on his arm. Just do what you have to, okay? Keep your head down. I'm trying to get another job. I'm not going to be here forever. Logan's stomach twisted. He hadn't come here to fire anyone. He'd come to observe, but now? Now it felt personal. His company, his name, was being used as a mask to exploit kids like Jared and silence voices like Maya's. And he couldn't walk out. Not without doing something. Not without burning this poison down to the root. Logan let the last sip of his smoothie linger as he stood and approached the register, eyes scanning the faded now hiring flyer taped crookedly to the glass near the counter. You guys hiring? He asked casually, tossing a thumb over his shoulder toward the sign. The assistant manager, Kyle, broad-shouldered, smug, with slicked back hair and a clipboard tucked under his arm, looked up from his tablet. His eyes raked over Logan's thrift store hoodie and worn sneakers, then flicked back down without much interest. Depends. You work fast? Don't mind late shifts? Logan nodded, keeping his posture relaxed, like someone desperate enough to agree to anything. Kyle smirked. Come on, I'll show you the back. Not everyone gets the tour, but I can tell you're serious. Logan followed him past the counter, through a narrow hallway that smelled faintly of citrus cleaner and something sourer underneath. The back room was a cramped, fluorescent-lit closet pretending to be an office. Metal shelves sagged under the weight of fruit boxes, some half-opened, others sweating through cardboard. One bin in the corner was clearly marked discard, but still had cut fruit wrapped in cellophane. Strawberries fuzzed at the edges, bananas black-spotted and slick. Kyle didn't flinch. Here's where the magic happens, he said with a grin, spreading his arms like a game show host. Inventory, prep, and adjustments. Logan raised an eyebrow, carefully. Adjustments? Kyle chuckled and leaned in like he was sharing a secret. Look, margins are tight. Head office wants numbers, so we give them numbers. You throw a scoop of expired goji into a blend, customer never notices. That's $2 added. Old pineapples? Puree 'em with ginger, call it detox. Boom. Nobody gets sick, we stay in the green. Logan's jaw tensed, but he forced a nod. Smart. Kyle clapped him on the back. Exactly. And some of the kids, they don't get it, like Maya. Girl's got a heart, but she's too soft for this business. Complains when we reuse almond milk past its date. Like, come on, it's almonds, not meat. Logan's eyes drifted to a dusty tip jar on a high shelf, shoved behind an old blender motor. That for customers? He asked. Kyle rolled his eyes. Nah, that's ours. If we leave it out front, they think it belongs to the staff. They don't need to know the difference. Logan nodded slowly, then glanced at the wall where timesheets hung. Paper, not digital, with faint eraser marks and 2 columns per name. We do hours by hand? He asked. Yeah, corporate system's buggy. Easier to just adjust it here. Some folks show up early, but you can't always pay them for standing around. You get it. Logan gave a low whistle and smiled, but inside every word was another nail. This wasn't just bad policy, it was deliberate, practiced, protected. Kyle thought he was winning. Logan looked around the room at the spoiled fruit, the locked tips, the scratched-out hours, and for the first time that day, he wasn't just disappointed. He was furious. Quietly, deliberately furious. The sky had begun to dim, the golden haze of late afternoon softening into early dusk as Logan leaned against the brick wall beside the juice bar's side exit. He'd been waiting. Not impatiently, just quietly. Listening to the sound of blenders humming down, the mop bucket wheels squeaking across tile, the slow unclipping of aprons. A few employees trickled out, tossing polite nods his way, but none stopped. Then came Maya, her hair pulled into a loose bun, face flushed from the day's grind. She almost passed him without a glance until he spoke. You look like someone carrying more than a smoothie. She paused halfway to her car, keys dangling from her fingers. Excuse me? She said, her voice cautious. Logan offered a soft smile, not rehearsed, not corporate, just real. I overheard a bit earlier about the expired fruit, the upcharges. I'm not here to report you. I'm just trying to understand. Maya looked around, scanning for ears or cameras, and took a hesitant step closer. Who are you? She asked, the distrust sharp in her tone. Logan didn't lie, but he didn't spill either. Just someone who thinks workers shouldn't be punished for doing the right thing. She hesitated. There was a long pause where the only sound was a car pulling out onto the street. Then slowly she let her shoulders drop. Look, I didn't want to say anything. I mean, I tried. A few months back, I emailed customer care, used a fake name. Nothing changed. Instead, Brent showed up more often, started watching the cameras, pulling us into the back room if we didn't hit the numbers. Logan nodded, his face unreadable, eyes steady. So you started recording? Maya blinked, startled. How did you? You looked around before you spoke today, not like someone afraid of being overheard, like someone who's been collecting proof. She studied him for a moment, then sighed. I didn't know what else to do. My mom's got a heart condition. Meds alone are $300 a month. I need this job, but I can't lie to people. I kept thinking, if I got enough, maybe someone would listen. Logan's fist stayed loose by his sides, but inside his anger coiled tighter. What kind of proof? She glanced at her phone, then back at him. Audio. Every time Brent gave us a new tip or threatened to cut hours, I recorded it. Some days he tells us which ingredients to fake, which customers are too dumb to notice. He brags about it. Logan's jaw tightened, but he didn't let it show. That's brave, he said. Dangerous, but brave. Maya gave a sad laugh. I don't feel brave, I feel stuck. If I send the files to corporate, I'll get blamed. I'll be gone in a week. Logan looked her in the eye. You might be surprised who's really listening. She tilted her head, puzzled. He didn't elaborate. He just nodded slowly, then walked past her, letting his silence speak louder than any promise. But inside, his next steps were already forming, and none of them included letting this slide. Logan didn't sleep that night, not because he couldn't, but because he wouldn't. By morning, he was already in his downtown office, lights low, blinds drawn, and a fresh folder open on his laptop labeled Internal Franchise Compliance, Tier 1. No assistants, no PR team, no legal filter. Just him. He poured black coffee into a chipped mug and began combing through every franchise report from the last 18 months. Sales spikes in Brent's region, hourly fluctuations, employee turnover, tips withheld, discounts reversed. The deeper he dug, the more the pattern revealed itself like a mold under fresh paint. Stores under Brent's oversight showed higher margins, but also the highest number of internal complaints, more refunds tied to quality issues, and more employees leaving within 90 days. Logan leaned back in his chair, eyes scanning an email thread between Brent and a store manager. Keep pushing the add-ons. If they say anything, say it's corporate policy, they'll back off. His grip tightened around the mouse. He sent 3 quiet directives to the compliance department, not from his main email, but from the alias he'd used years ago during secret inspections. Random audit, the note said. Do not alert regional staff. Within 24 hours, 5 stores had new security cameras installed, pointed not at the customers, but at the employee stations. Another directive pulled every customer complaint from the past year, focusing on Brent's stores. Nearly all echoed the same concerns: wrong charges, strange tastes, disrespectful management. Logan compiled it all into a secure drive and handed it off to only 2 people, his old head of ethics and his most trusted legal advisor. No board meetings, no press statements, not yet. This was still a shadow operation, and Logan wasn't done. He had one more visit to make. This time he didn't wear the hoodie. He didn't wear the fardoid either. Just jeans, a plain blue shirt, and a discreet mic clipped under the collar. In his back pocket was a phone set to record audio and a small pin camera hidden in the seam of his jacket. When he walked back into the juice bar, it was a different kind of quiet that followed him. Familiar. The kind that comes before a storm. Jared was mopping near the counter and looked up, confused. Maya wasn't there. Brent was, laughing with Kyle by the register, sipping a smoothie like he owned the place. Logan didn't flinch. He ordered a blend he didn't plan to drink, took a seat in the same window corner, and waited. Because he knew something most of the people in that store didn't. He wasn't here to buy juice anymore. He was here to catch a ghost hiding in daylight. And Brent? Brent had just walked straight into the trap. The air inside the store was sharp with citrus cleaner and tension. The lights weren't fully on yet, just the humming fluorescence above the prep area casting a cold white glow across the stainless steel counters. Logan sat quietly in the same corner as before, a lidded smoothie in front of him untouched, his phone angled on the table, recording. It was 15 minutes before open, and he'd come early on purpose. Brent had too. Logan watched as the man strutted through the staff entrance like he was walking onto a stage. Tan blazer, sunglasses still perched on his head, phone in one hand, clipboard in the other. He tossed a lazy nod to Kyle, then zeroed in on a nervous new girl folding napkins at the front. "You call that presentation?" Brent barked, his voice sharp enough to cut through the air. The girl flinched. I, I thought I lined them up like the manual said," Brent scoffed. "Forget the manual. You're not here to follow it. You're here to make this place look profitable. Customers eat with their eyes. You want them seeing sloppiness?" The girl looked down, lips pressed together. Logan's eyes flicked to the corner of the prep area, where Maya had just emerged from the back room, apron tied tight, face unreadable. She paused mid-step when she saw Brent, but to her credit, she didn't turn away. "She just started this week," Maya said calmly. "Give her a second to settle in." Brent turned slowly, locking eyes with her. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "There she is, my favorite little activist." Maya didn't flinch, just asking for decency. Brent stepped forward, clipboard tapping against his palm. "You know what I see when I look at you, Maya? Someone who talks too much and works too little. You're on thin ice, and if you want to keep your name on next week's schedule, you'll stop playing union rep." Logan watched her swallow the words she clearly wanted to say. Her jaw tightened, but she stayed silent. Brent wasn't done. "And one more thing. If you bring up those made-up accusations again, I'll replace you faster than you can blend a banana. Got it?" That was it. Logan stood slowly, the chair scraping softly across the tile. Brent glanced over, irritated, not recognizing him at first. "We're closed," he said, already dismissing him with a wave. Logan stepped closer, voice calm. "It's a bit early for threats, don't you think?" Brent blinked. "Excuse me?" Logan smiled without warmth. "You don't recognize me, do you?" Brent stared, frowning. Logan reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a business card, and dropped it onto the counter. "Logan Price," he said clearly. "Founder, CEO." The room fell into absolute silence. Maya's eyes widened. The new hire froze. Brent's mouth opened slightly, no sound coming out. Logan didn't look angry. He looked resolute. "Now," he said, taking his phone off the table, "I think we should talk about what you really do before opening the hours." The silence that followed Logan's words wasn't empty. It was charged, heavy, the kind that makes you realize the room you're standing in just changed forever. Brent's face twitched, trying to recover his smug grin, but it faltered beneath the weight of recognition. "Logan Price? No, there's no way," he stammered, eyes flicking to Kyle, to Maya, then back to Logan. "This has to be some kind of joke." Logan didn't move. "It's not, and I'm done watching people like you turn what I built into a machine that chews people up." He turned to the staff. Jared had emerged from the back, apron still half-tied, eyes wide. And then back to Maya, whose mouth hung open in disbelief. "I started Sunbury with $300 and a blender in a kitchen that barely had a working stove. I made every recipe on our board with my own hands. I hired my first employees from halfway houses and food banks because I believed in second chances. And every policy, every single one, was written to protect people like you, he said, nodding toward Maya. Not people like him. Brent took a half step back, then tried to recover. You don't understand the pressure, Logan. Corporate demands performance. I'm just doing what it takes to meet the numbers. At what cost? Logan's voice cut through the air, not loud, but sharp enough to stop Brent cold. Threatening teenagers to upcharge, forcing sick kids to serve moldy fruit, skimming tips, doctoring timesheets. That's not performance. That's theft. Brent opened his mouth again, but Logan raised a hand. Sit down. It wasn't a request. Brent hesitated, then sank onto a stool behind the counter, suddenly aware of every set of eyes on him. Logan reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. You want to talk about pressure? Let's start here. He pressed play. Brent's own voice filled the store, unmistakable. If they don't notice the flax, don't bring it up. They're just customers, not detectives. Then, if Maya wants to play honest, she can do it without Sunday shifts. And finally, the one that made Jared's face drain of color. We lock the tips up because if they see it, they think they earned it. Keep them hungry. Logan let it play for 10 more seconds, then stopped it. Brent looked down, face flushed, words lost. Maya's hand had gone to her mouth. Kyle stared at the floor. This isn't just about one store, Logan said quietly. I've been auditing all of them. You're not a rogue manager. You're a blueprint for everything that's gone wrong. He turned back to the staff, and it ends today. He looked each of them in the eye, not as a CEO, not as a stranger, but as someone who remembered why this place existed in the first place. I'm not here to save face. I'm here to rebuild what matters. Brent leaned forward, desperation creeping into his voice like a leak through cracked concrete. Look, Logan, this isn't what it looks like. Everything I did, I had sign-off. Corporate approved the upselling tactics. They knew about the spoilage policies. You think this stuff happens without someone upstairs knowing? His hands spread out like he was surrendering, but his eyes searched for a lifeline. Logan didn't blink. That's your defense? Blame the system you were supposed to protect? Brent stood suddenly, voice rising. Come on, man. We're not in the kitchen anymore. This is a company now. It's different when you're scaling. You cut corners, you stay alive. You think all those other franchisees followed your little heart-first mission? Logan reached into his coat pocket, calm and methodical, and pulled out a small black USB drive. He held it between two fingers, almost casually, but his tone sliced through the tension like ice through warm air. 5 stores, 5 different cities, all under your supervision. Same reports, same tactics, same threats. He walked slowly to the counter, plugged the drive into the register's built-in display monitor, and tapped to the screen. Up came screenshots of internal emails with Brent's signature, voice memos, edited time cards, even a spreadsheet with tip reallocation as a labeled column. Brent's face paled. You've been setting me up, he muttered. No, Logan said coolly. You set yourself up. I just stopped pretending not to see it. He turned toward the staff, making sure every eye saw what they needed to see. Let this be clear. If you exploit people, if you twist trust into a profit model, you don't belong here. Period. Then without a pause, he turned back to Brent. You're done. Effective immediately. You're not just fired, you're banned from every Sunbury location. If you set foot in one again, we'll consider it trespassing. Brent's mouth opened, but no sound came out. The silence was louder than any protest could have been. Kyle shifted awkwardly, taking a slow step back, like proximity alone might cost him his job. Logan scanned the room and landed on Maya. Her posture was still guarded, arms folded slightly in front of her, but there was a glimmer in her eyes, something between disbelief and hope. Maya, Logan said, his voice softening, you've shown more integrity in a blender's shadow than some execs show in a boardroom. He took a breath, then made the offer as clearly as he could. I want you to lead a new ethics training initiative, company-wide, not as a token, as a foundation. We need people who speak up, who remember that our purpose isn't just smoothies, it's people. Maya blinked, stunned. I I'm just part-time. Not anymore, Logan replied. You're whatever you want to be, starting today. And just like that, the tide turned. Not with applause, not with banners, but with the quiet hum of a store finally breathing again. Truth had stepped behind the counter, and this time it was here to stay. The smell of bleach and fresh-cut citrus lingered in the air, but this time it wasn't there to cover up rot, it was there to disinfect the damage. Logan stood behind the counter, sleeves rolled, gloves on, digging through the storage fridge with Maya beside him. If it's brown, it's down, he muttered, pulling out a sealed bag of spinach gone slimy at the bottom. Maya laughed, light and real, the kind of laugh he hadn't heard from anyone in the store until now. You sound like Jared, she said. That's his motto. Jared across the room grinned shyly, stacking fresh fruit bins with the kind of care that comes from knowing your work finally means something. Logan had called in a full crew from HQ, not in suits but in t-shirts and aprons, to help clean, restock, and rebuild from the ground up. For once, corporate wasn't issuing orders. They were scrubbing blenders, labeling dates, and wiping down every surface with the humility of people who knew they'd looked away too long. Kyle had been quietly reassigned pending review, and the rest of the staff was invited into the meeting room, this time not for warnings or threats, but to speak. And they did. Some cautiously, others with fire. Stories poured out about skipped breaks, pay that didn't match hours worked, policy changes, whispered instead of documented. Logan didn't interrupt. He just wrote, listened, nodded. For the first time in a long time, the store felt human again. That afternoon, he handed out envelopes, each one containing a retroactive bonus based on the hours that had been trimmed, tips that had been taken, the voice that had been stifled. Jared opened his and blinked in disbelief. Is this real? Logan nodded. Every cent you earned, plus interest. But the biggest shift wasn't in the pay. It was in the energy. The team that once moved like ghosts now laughed between prep tasks. They asked questions, shared ideas. Maya, once the cautious whisperer in the back, now stood confidently as a leader among them. And Logan had one more surprise. He handed her a small white envelope with gold lettering. She opened it, eyes scanning quickly, then froze. Franchise Summit? She read aloud. You want me to speak? No, Logan said. I need you to. He smiled. The story doesn't change unless people like you tell it. A week later, under the soft glow of the summit stage lights, Maya stood before a crowd of hundreds. Franchise owners, managers, corporate staff. Her voice was steady, honest, raw. She spoke of expired fruit and empty promises, but she also spoke of second chances, of what it meant to be heard, to be seen, to be believed. By the end, the room rose to its feet, not just for her, but for the change she represented. Logan watched from the side, hands in his pockets, eyes bright. The company wasn't fixed overnight, but it had started, and the right voice had lit the match. The bell over the glass door chimed just like it always had, but this time the sound was met with laughter, the soft beat of upbeat music, and the rhythmic hum of a blender working magic behind the counter. Logan stepped inside unnoticed, hands in his pockets, baseball cap low, the scent of fresh fruit wrapping around him like a welcome back hug. The shop felt different, not because the walls had changed, but because the people inside had. The energy buzzed with something real. Maya stood behind the counter, not in her old worn apron, but in a crisp company polo with her name embroidered on the chest, headset clipped neatly to her ear. She was giving instructions to a new hire, showing them how to cut mango without bruising it, smiling as she worked, confident without forcing it. The menu board had been redone, sleek, modern, vibrant. Logan's eyes caught a new item at the very top, the Maya blend. Mango, turmeric, ginger, a hint of cayenne, bold and bright with a little heat at the end. He chuckled under his breath and stepped into line. When it was his turn, the girl at the register smiled. Welcome to Sunbury. What can I get you? Logan glanced at the board. I'll take a Maya blend, oh. The girl nodded enthusiastically. Great choice. That one's our best seller. You'll see why. Logan stepped aside and waited as the blender whirred to life. Behind the counter, Maya glanced up for the first time and froze for half a second. Recognition flickered in her eyes. She didn't wave, didn't call attention to him. She just offered a subtle nod. Respectful, grateful, and deeply understood. Logan returned it with the smallest of smiles. When the smoothie hit the counter, bright orange and gold in a clear, compostable cup, he took it in both hands like something sacred. He found his usual table by the window and sat quietly, watching the flow of the shop. Employees joked as they worked. A toddler giggled as he stole a sip from his mom's straw. The atmosphere buzzed with something that couldn't be faked. Joy. Logan took a sip. It hit his tongue with a sweetness that gave way to warmth, then finished with a gentle burn that lingered just long enough to remind him of everything it took to get here. The blend was bold, balanced, and just a little unexpected, like Maya herself. He sat there for a long moment, not rushing, just letting it settle. Because sometimes leadership isn't about announcements or applause. Sometimes it's about walking in quietly, seeing what grew in your absence, and realizing the right people were always there. They just needed someone to believe in them. Logan watched Maya as she laughed with a customer, her shoulders relaxed, her voice bright. He took another sip. The smoothie was perfect, and for the first time in a long time, so was the peace that followed. Sometimes the most powerful change doesn't come from a boardroom. It starts with a quiet voice behind a counter, speaking truth when it's not safe. Logan didn't just find corruption, he found courage. And because of Maya, Sunbury Juice Cone didn't just recover, it remembered who it was. If this story moved you, if you believe in standing up for what's right, no matter how small the setting, then this is the kind of place you belong. Subscribe for more real stories where the underdog speaks up, justice shows up, and quiet heroes rise from behind the scenes. Because the next chapter, it could start with someone just like you.